SpeedyBee have just released version 4 of their F405 flight stack. And as well as looking even more beautiful than the version 3 that I reviewed about a year ago, there are some significant and welcome improvements, particularly if you're using INAV. And yet again, as well as beating the competition on features, they've managed to beat them on price as well. This is about $10 cheaper than their nearest competitor. Let's have a closer look. Hello and welcome to the Whirly Bloke channel. I never fail to be impressed when I get my hands on a new SpeedyBee flight stack. There's always these signature yellow soft mounts, but mainly they just ooze quality. And these are very nicely produced PCBs using 3-ounce layer copper, and this 4-in-1 ESC sports this fantastic aluminium alloy heatsink that almost looks like it's an engine cover from a Ferrari. And as you can see, it's proudly silk screened with the new current rating, 55 amps continuous and 70 amps burst current, and that's the first big change with this version 4. The previous version 3 was 50 amps. And before I get too carried away by the specs and other improvements on this, let's get to the important subject of price. This entire stack is $69.99. And if I'm honest, I've got absolutely no idea how that's even possible in the current world financial climate. It's ridiculously good value for money. The MCU on the flight controller is an STM32 F405, and the gyro on here is an ICM 43688P, which is a change from the BMI 270 that they had on the previous version. And just like the F405 Mini I reviewed recently, this has a separate power supply and improved surge protection for the gyro to achieve better noise performance. And that's further improved by using a 100 microfarad tantalum capacitor on here. Being tantalum simply means it's a capacitor that's very small but has a large capacitance, so it doesn't take up too much room. Now this has got a 5 volt and a 9 volt back that are now 3 amps rather than 2 amps like they had on the version 3, and they've improved this SD card reader for better SD card compatibility. The other big change, especially if you use INAV, is this properly now supports DSHOT on 8 motor outputs. This was a problem previously and you had to use multi-shot or one-shot 125 on INAV. And although INAV made some changes for previous SpeedyBee stacks to support DSHOT, it was a bit of a workaround. But this natively supports DSHOT for INAV, and that makes me rather happy. None of that, of course, was an issue for Betaflight on previous version or this version. And other than being about 10 grams heavier than the V3 for the whole thing, things on this are pretty much the same. You get 6 UARTs, 8 motor outputs, and a built-in barometer, and you get the SD card slot for storing black box data. There's an I2C connection for an external magnetometer or whatever else you want, sonar, whatever, and the usual SpeedyBee LED battery indicator down here. And you get a few extra BECs as well. You get 2 4.5 volt for GPS and for your receiver, and there's a 3.3 volt for older receivers as well. And the great thing SpeedyBee have done on this and their other flight controllers is the GPS 4.5 volts works when it's connected to USB. So it works from battery or USB. And this makes setting up GPS really easy because you can do it all on the desk using just a computer and a USB cable. Now this all talks to the SpeedyBee app using a combination of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, so you can wirelessly set up your flight controller with Betaflight or an INAV just using your phone. No USB cables are needed, and this makes PID tuning in the field so quick and easy. And I've been using the app since it first appeared a few years ago, and I won't be without it now. And you can even use it to flash new firmware if you need to. And if you didn't know already, you can also use the app to change the motor direction wirelessly without needing to connect to BL Heli Configurator. And I've done a few other videos on this, so check them out. Now onto this stunning looking 4-in-1 ESC. Apart from the higher continuous current rating of 55 amps and this alloy heatsink, there's been a few other changes as well. It's now got 22 filtering capacitors on here, and the MOSFETs they're using now have a lower internal resistance of 1.1 milliohms. In practical terms, that just simply means this is going to run a little bit cooler than the version 3. And it's flashed with BL Heli S firmware, but you can flash BlueJ if you want, and that of course brings you bidirectional DSHOT. That's not needed for INAV because its filtering works differently, but Betaflight, you can take advantage of that to improve the dynamic filtering. And as is now normal for SpeedyBee, this has got a built-in TVS surge protection diode down here, and that helps minimise surge issues when you plug a battery in. And you can power all of this off anything between 3 and 6S. Now in the box you get the usual mounting hardware, this massive 1000 microfarad low ESR noise suppression capacitor. There's a pre-soldered XT60 and a small bag of cables. A bag of cables, how completely boring. Well, maybe not in this case. This stack is DJI Air Unit ready, so you get a plug and play cable for that. Nice and simple. You also get the usual interconnect cable for the flight controller and the ESC PCB. So you put that between those two. But what's this long cable? It's something I've been banging on about for ages. 4-in-1 ESCs have been the norm for a long time now, and connecting them together is trivial when the manufacturer gives you this short interconnect, why can't I say interconnect cable like this? But what happens when you want to mount it a different way round? So the manufacturer wants you to mount it this way round with the arrow pointing forward, because that's the way everything's set up for the gyro, and the interconnect cable goes between there and there. Now, if for some reason you want to spin that round 180 degrees, you'll need to make up a new cable or laboriously solder separate longer wires between the two boards, because this cable won't reach round to the front. And that's really annoying. But SpeedyBee have listened to someone, probably not me, and they include this longer interconnect cable that will reach even if you spin the boards round 180 degrees. What's the point? Well, how many times have you wanted to change the orientation of the battery connectors or the USB connector on a particular build that you've got? You might want to have them facing that way, for example, or even that way. And for me, this happens probably on every other build. And having this longer cable means you can easily connect the two boards together without having to make up your own. So thanks for listening, SpeedyBee. A ridiculously simple and cheap change that makes all our drone building life much easier. Well, there we have it. A first look review of this new SpeedyBee F405 V4 flight stack with lots of great improvements and a fantastic price of $69.99. And this is due to be launched on the 26th of September 2023, so expect it to be on pre-sale for a while after that, direct from the SpeedyBee website. And I know it's got a great spec and price, but this extra long interconnect cable has really made my day. And I've got some plans for this and where I'm going to be using it, and no doubt there'll be my usual build video to go with that. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it. Feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you think of this. Your comments are always appreciated and I try to answer them all. Give this a thumbs up if you found it useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.